2021, I was living with my brother in Little Lake Harbor. I was working a factory job to pay for the lifestyle I was living. In the morning, my daily routine, pretty much every day, I smoked weed right away. Sometimes I would drink. Then I would go to work. Most nights, I would prep and buy alcohol, put it in my car, hide it under my seat, and then just drink it on the way home. Pretty much the only time where I was in a good mood or happy was when I was high. I had no relationship with God. It was non-existent. Didn't even think about it. I knew I said I was a Christian. I was raised in a Christian house, and we did devotions growing up. They raised me right, but I just never fully developed a relationship with God at all, or Jesus.
So Evan's always had a really sweet nature. He's always been wanting to please, and anytime there was conflict, he usually would own anything that he'd done wrong, at least to our face. And on the other hand, he had a very obsessive personality. Anytime he held a Batman, it had to be in the right position. And if it wasn't that way, it would upset him. He would get obsessed with video games and play into all hours of the night. Then in the last few years, he got obsessed with vaping and marijuana, along with his older brother.
The first time we found it, we sat them down and talked to them and appealed to their heart. And then what we said, that if we find it again, it'll be a $250 fine. Because in the real world with adults, when you do something wrong, you get fined. And at 20 years old, there's not a lot you can do to discipline. And discipline for us is a heart issue. So we were hoping that would deter them. And we found it again, and then we did another, it was a $250 fine. Then the second time would be a $500 fine. And then the last time was moving out. And then the fifth time when we found the drugs we had, that was, he knew. When I found it, I said, "You know what this means?" And he's like, "Yep, I guess I'm gonna go." At that point, my prayer life was weak at best. I had watched a few years ago a little girl in our church pass away unexpectedly. But before that, there were prayer chains going out with thousands of people praying for this little girl. And I felt at that time very confident that she was going to be healed. And when she wasn't, my entire belief in prayer just crashed. So when Evan was going through all this, I prayed for strength. I prayed generic prayers that he would turn around, that he would remember, who he loved and who he served. But otherwise, I didn't pray for anything specific. And I mainly was still nagging a lot, thinking that I could fix him. It was me worrying about how to fix him.
My prayer life was, I'd say, intermittent at best. When I would pray, it would be high-level generalities, help them make the right choices, protect them, keep them safe. And certainly Amy and I, through the years, have never really had a great prayer life. And this certainly highlighted that for us.
So March 31st, I had off. I drank a whole bottle of THC in the morning. Liquid THC, it was a heavy dosage. Knocked me out all day. And then it was something I'd never experienced before. The next day at work, I woke up feeling drunk. It was basically I was drunk, my senses were all off. I couldn't talk straight. They called the supervisors on me, check on me, because they could tell something was off. And I remember calling my brother midday, saying, on lunch break, I was I think I'm gonna get fired. They know I'm messed up. I don't know what's wrong. I didn't smoke today. Later that night, I stay in the bathroom until everybody leaves. Usually we all leave together. I was just so scared. What's wrong with me? What did I do to my brain? I had a shooter in my car too. I took a shooter before I left on the road. I thought that would maybe help. So I took more, I just drank alcohol. But on the way home, I was freaking out, swerving. I didn't know where I was going. I couldn't even get home. I called my mom panicking, I need help. I don't know what I did to myself.
I was actually in Maryland with Avery a couple hours, 3 hours away. And I got the first phone call around 9 from Evan, which was unusual because he didn't call me. And when he called, he was in a hysteria. Didn't know where he was, and could I help him, that he couldn't breathe, that he couldn't drive, and he said he was swerving. He was on the parkway, and he was swerving. And my main thought was, I have to get him off the road. He has to get off the road. I didn't know any reason why this was happening. He called me back again at 9:30. Worse, he was crying and sobbing and begging for me to help him. I called his brother and said, Evan needs help. He's going He's on his way home, but he doesn't know where he is, and he just needs to take care of him and get him to bed.
I get there, they're like, what's good? I'm like, I don't know, like something's not right. And then he was like, you know what, let's just smoke more weed. So we smoked more weed. I did mushrooms that night, and then I drank more alcohol. So I was like pretty much on 3 drugs. And then we were just chilling on the couch. We were like, okay, let's go play some Mario Kart. We sat down, it was all going good, and then all of a sudden I got up, couldn't breathe. I honestly, a little bit after that was a blur, but I remember some of the night, apparently I was like running outside, I was taking my shirt off, like I kept trying to go outside and breathe, but my brother would try and like bring me back inside because I was like trying to run away, like he was afraid I was gonna hurt myself.
I got a phone call at around 1:30 from Jonathan, his older brother, who was hysterical, saying that Evan was out of control, was trying to leave the house, was trying to drive away, was out of his mind. His heart rate was rapid, his breathing was rapid, and he didn't know what to do. So he wanted me to talk to him. I prayed with him, told him he was okay, he wasn't gonna die, he was all right, he just needed to stay in the house. The next phone call was from Jonathan's girlfriend, and I hear screaming in the background. I hear sirens and Jonathan screaming, saying Evan just dove headfirst through the 20-foot, through the window, 20 feet off the ground. This is the 2nd floor. It was a house on stilts. Headfirst out the window. Jonathan said, I don't know if he's alive. I don't know what I'm gonna find.
Jonathan said it was like I was possessed. I jumped, I stood up out of the chair, like just stared at the window, and I just jumped onto my bed, dove through the window, like with my head, like kind of like that, like Superman dived through it.
He had fallen on Nicole's car, on the girlfriend's car, who never parks where she parked. She parked halfway under the deck, so that back half of the car was out under the deck. And the paramedics said he shouldn't be alive. They didn't know how he lived, but if the car hadn't been there, he would have not lived, or he would have been severely disabled.
I was like, I might be dead right now. This might be the afterlife, because I just fell down to the ground. I was like, how am I alive? There's no way I'm alive. So I'd gotten in my car. I'd just scrambled. I saw my car in front of me. I scrambled to it. I got in the driver's seat. My brother luckily ran down the stairs after me, jumped in the passenger door.
And when the paramedics got there, at that point, I'm on the phone with Jonathan. Jonathan is straddling him in the car.
In my state, I was like, not right. So I was like, they're trying to take me away. They're gonna transport me to hell. That's what I was thinking.
The paramedics had to strap him onto the board, and he was violent. He punched one of them.
They handcuffed me, detained me, put me on the table, locked me in, secure.
That moment of not knowing, is he gonna live? Is he gonna be brain damaged? What did he take? What is causing this? And
I get a phone call in the middle of the night. First, I think I said, are you serious? What do you mean? You went, I need to go to Atlantic City. So I drove down, got ready as fast as I could, drove down. Evan was laying on a gurney when I got there. Put my hand on his arm, told him he was gonna be okay. I was surprised, given the description, that he wasn't bloodied. It was a disconnect for me. I mean, how could he have fallen from a 2nd story of a loft house and not be more injured?
They get me to the hospital. They run the x-rays, the CAT scans on me. Everything comes back okay, no broken bones. They said I had a bad concussion. Just had a bunch of glass in me pretty much. Had glass in my hands, my face, my back, my legs.
And then I was ushered out, and really that was the start of Amy and I knowing that we had lost all control in the situation.
And I was still in Maryland, so that morning, as soon as we checked out the hotel, my main thought was, I have to get back. I have to get a hold of the hospital. I have to find out what is going on, and we couldn't get answers. Whoever the front desk was, I said, I'm going to come there, and you're going to have to arrest me if you don't find a way to let me talk to him. So she took the phone, and she went into his room with a cordless phone, I guess. And that was the first time I spoke to Evan. It was probably one of the worst moments for me, because he's still my baby, and he was pleading with me to get him out, to help him. And that was the second that I changed my prayer life. I would just hit the floor on my knees and just sobbing and just crying out for God. No words, and then he and I start praying. And I said, he needs a Christian nurse. He needs Christian nurses. He needs to have somebody that's ministering to him. And so we started immediately praying, Lord, please send him someone that is a Christian that can pray with him.
One of the nurses was a Christian nurse, like the first one. She prayed with me. She could tell I was like not okay. She prayed with me. She was like, God's here, he's with you. Which was cool is my parents later told me they prayed like that God would provide me with Christian nurses and people in that would like make me not feel alone.
So she called on her personal phone, called us from hers, and she said, I'm gonna pray with him. I'm gonna take his phone up and charge it on my personal charger, and I won't leave him. I'm gonna stay here until his phone's charged enough for him to have a charge. Even though she was off, this in her unit, and she sat with him and she prayed with him, and she got an iPad so we could FaceTime him and see him.
They had told him he was going to be transferred to the short-term facility, and he was super
agitated, but at that moment, I was angry. I'd been praying that he was going to be let out. So it was once again, my prayer was, he's not going to be transferred. God, you're not going to let this happen. You can't let this happen. He needs to be let out. We didn't find out till later that he was surrounded by SWAT teams. They were in black SWAT gear and riot gear, and he had really no idea where he was going, and neither did we at that moment. I had started a new life group about a month prior for moms that were praying scripture over their kids, and which was out of my comfort zone at the time. But I had actually started praying very specifically, and I think it was from one of the sermons about being audacious in your prayers and being bold and being specific. So in that prayer group, I'd started praying specifically for him, that something would happen in his life that he would not be able to not see God's hand in it. That was my prayer. Something specific would happen, that he would see God's direct intervention in his life. I had no idea what that was going to look like, but that's what my prayer had been.
So the psych ward was a pretty awakening experience for me. It was the first time where I saw God actually perform miracles in front of my eyes, and I could feel his presence around me.
When I was finally able to talk to him, he was hysterical, and he said, this place is so scary. And I for some reason instantly just said, you need a Bible. Because you're there and there, what are you going to do all of that time? There's no TV, I said, you need a Bible. You need to put your mind in the Word. You need a Bible.
We found out they had no Bibles in this facility.
They had recently taken all hospitals.
Bibles.
I asked one of the nurses for a Bible. They said they didn't have a Bible. They said they don't have Bibles in here. And then one of the patients came up to me. He was like, I have this Psalms and New Testament Bible. You can have it if you want. I was like, oh, okay. I took it from him, walked back to my room. I was like, whoa, that just happened. I was like, some random patient just gave me a Bible out of nowhere, didn't even hear when I was asking the nurse. I
called and I got a hold of him, and he's like, Mom, someone just walked by and lifted up their shirt, because they had hospital issued clothing, and he said, and he had a little Bible, contraband. He's like, you want this?
So I got back to my room, started reading the Bible for the first time in years. And the verses were just standing out to me. I can't remember the verses were, but they were popping out.
So yeah, our prayers, last time he said, were find someone that can minister to him, because we know he has no ability to do that on his own. Let him be able to see and hear you. Let him obviously protect him.
And there was this man sitting at the end of the hall. I had never met him before. His name was Bruce. He was just sitting down by a window, and I was like, something in me was telling me to go sit next to him. And he was like, what's that in your hand? And I was like, it's the Bible. He was like, do you want to read it with me? I was like, yeah. He prayed with me. I can't remember the prayer, but it was pretty amazing. I was crying. He was like, God's with you. You're never too far to come back to God. You can come in any time in your life. It's like, wow, God's real.
He had a concussion this whole time, a severe concussion. He wasn't being attended to from a medical perspective. They just had, weekend staff. It was a holiday weekend. So that we started to pray for that.
The one nurse was she opened the curtains. It was super bright. My head was pounding. I couldn't it was killing me at that point. And then she was like, do we want the curtains open today? Is everybody good? And then Jorge looked at me, this other random patient I never met before, and he was like, no, we want them closed. So he got up, closed the blinds for me, so it was dark in there, which was another, it was basically God, there, I got you. It was crazy because after that, my head was good. I was in a lot of pain before that when it was bright in the room.
He had said, when I got a hold of him that morning and asked him about the night, and he said, There's people pacing the hallways all night. He said, but they're angels. They're my angels. And he wasn't making sense. I didn't understand. And he's like, my roommate is freaked out by these people and wants them to leave. And he's punched a hole in the wall, like he's angry, which all of this that he's telling me is scaring me. And he's like, but they're my angels. I felt safe. We found out later that some of those same people were the people ministering to him.
Monday morning, Evan was in such a peace and seeing God work, like he wanted to continue to minister to
He said, I'm not ready. I can't leave my roommate. I said, God is going to take care of your roommate. God can handle your roommate. You need to want out. You need to get out. And the social worker said, I'll call you back. I'm going to go talk to Evan. And before I guess after she talked to Evan, she hadn't called me back, but I got a hold of Evan and he said, well, I'm going to tell her that I'm not ready to leave yet. And we're on speakerphone with Evan and we're like, no, you can't tell him that. You are ready. You have to be ready. And well, you didn't tell her that yet, did you? And he's like, it's going to be okay, Mom. It's going to be. And now he's telling us that it's going to be okay.
So then we found out that Evan went back to his room because all these conversations were in the hallway. They didn't have rooms, any phones in the rooms. So he had gone back to his room to see his roommate, and he said that this guy Jorge was in the room with his roommate, kind of talking to him. And Evan said when he saw that they were, having this, peaceful conversation, he said he felt a peace that he could leave.
That day that he was getting out, he said those 6 people that were roaming the hallways were waiting to be discharged that day also.
We didn't really connect all the dots.
All of that.
But the friend that she had asked to pray for her had sent her something about
angels were
guardian angels.
And that's what he kept saying to me. My guardian angels are here with me. I'm okay. The guardian angels are with me.
Yeah, it was either God working with patients or it was guardian angels, one of the two. It wasn't coincidence. Clearly evident to Amy and I that weekend that God was making himself evident both to us and to Evan in such a drastic way.
All right, so that whole experience really made me realize that I don't have to chase drugs anymore or a high to fulfill me. It was after that experience, I was I want to devote my life to Jesus and live for him.
After Evan got out, he was completely changed, 180 degrees. So excited to be home, loving.
He started to do things that he had never done, so he was trying to develop relationships with his brothers and ministering to his youngest brother, Brennan, and kind of apologizing to the things that they had tortured Brennan with through the years and telling Brennan that, he's such a strong kid, and just kind of those heartfelt things that parents want to see happen between their kids, but it just, it took the love of God to open that up in Evan's mind. He even said, Dad, I can't listen to any of my old music anymore because it was all, concentrating on drugs and death and lying. And he said, I can't even listen to that. It makes me sick. So God had done had touched his heart and his mind in such a way that he was just wanting nothing but, Christ, nothing but God in his life.
I got involved in the church. I started coming to True Life. I've never been involved in the church before, so it was really neat to start to get into the community. I reached out to young adults. I went to young adults. Met Justin. He was a great mentor. Gives me amazing advice, amazing friends. Just blessing on blessings. He blessed me with a girlfriend. Love of my life. I've been able to share a relationship in Jesus with, which I've never experienced before, intimate level.
This links back to me being upset when he was being taken to the short-term psych ward. He said when he came home, I am so thankful that I was transferred there. He said, because I was not ready to give anything up.
Yeah,
he said I would have gone right back. He said I would have gone right back to our house in Little Egg, and I would have gone right back to what I was doing. He said God wasn't done with me yet, and I'm so thankful that I got to do that. And so now I'm sorry, Lord, I didn't know your plan. I didn't trust your plan. Your plan was to not leave him until he was fully changed and committed. And
personally, I've kind of changed the way and allowed myself to lean into the church and lean into the life groups and the men's group that I've been with. And it's been a year of real growth, our family growth for Amy and I, and certainly an amazing change and growth in Evan.
once I found Jesus, I was like, I'm never going back to how I was before. Like, why would I want to leave? What he offers is like pretty much uncomparable to anything else.